Okie dokie. Okay, so this is Nietzsche's fourth book, actually, or fifth. It began with The Birth of Tragedy, which we did earlier. None of you were, I think, I know Kwan was here for some of that. And we did two of the Untimely Meditations. And then we jumped over Human Ultra Human and The Dawn to what Nietzsche felt was his most personal book in his recollections later on in his life. So we're going to skip the book was published in 1882, and the attitude that I've been trying to promote in these meetups is that it's 1882 for us too. We don't know what anybody thought after Nietzsche wrote. We do know about Hegel, we do know about Kant, we do know about Locke and Hume, and what conventional, and Schopenhauer, and what conventional philosophy was before, or even contemporary with Nietzsche. But what I want to discourage is Heidegger thought this and Sartre thought that. I just want to know what you think about the whole thing as we move through it. So when it was originally published, it only had 4 parts. And then in 1887, he added the preface, which we are going to be reading at the end when we're finished with the whole thing. And when he wrote the preface, he had published Zarathustra and Beyond Good and Evil. And he added a 5th book to the Gay Science, which is what we are reading now, all 5 books. And now there's a sense of continuity moving from this book into Zarathustra. So that's how we're going to approach this. And I said to read 1 through 15 to start with. I'll actually be disappointed if we get through all 15 today. I am not in a rush to do this. So we can take as long as we take, and what we don't get to today, we'll get to next week. So we're going to read Nietzsche's preface at the end. So the first aphorism, and the style here is very, very different than it was with the books that we have done and the essays that we have done before. And he had abandoned that style. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Nietzsche, but this is, I guess it's even still being debated whether this is really philosophy or not. But I think it is. I think even the very opening section is philosophical. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever, but some people, well, whatever. So the first section is about the teachers of the purpose of existence. And I'm just going to open it up to start with. I have some highlighted quotes, and maybe you do too. What do you think he's getting at in this very first section? Raise your virtual hand when you want to say something. And so nobody wants to say anything at all. I'm going to have to do all the talking here. Audrey.
Well, I really was waiting for other people because I'm not sure what I think about this, but I mean, from rereading it and the sections that I highlighted, that you have to assess the whole, and you can't like separate it, put it, take it apart, and expect some definitive answer on what it is that you're responding to. And what I think he's just talking about humans here. And I could be wrong about that, but that's what I think he's talking about. And talking very strongly about preservation of the species. I highlighted the sections on, I don't know what version you have. I have the Cambridge version because I couldn't find one with Kaufman. But the rest of my Nietzsche stuff is Kaufman. So this is interesting that it's a little different, but the section I'm looking at is on a large scale assessment upon further reflection on the whole. One grows suspicious of this tidying and separating and finally abandons it. Even the most harmful person may actually be the most useful. And then he goes on about the preservation of the species and talks about hatred. So I remember when I read this, it made my it took me aback. It took me a long time to figure out what he's talking about. Is this like somebody I want to follow? Is he nuts? I this was a long time ago when I thought this. And but later on, at some point, my little note here is that this is very interesting. And I also said in my note that there's something Deleuzian about this. I can understand why Deleuze uses him, and it's so interested in him. So you don't want to talk about Deleuze, but that's sort of the way I think is multiplicity. So and this is like, this could be the beginning of, you know, a multiplicity of views and understandings. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, I have a completely different take on it, but oh, Jason.
Yeah, I think here I highlight as a man must from time to time believe he knows why he exists. I believe that's the essence here. But I really like what he's talking about. I believe he's talking about gay science. Is gay science means the lover plus wisdom, which I think is usually the philosopher lack of. So.
Juan.
Okay, so we were supposed to read the section 1 to 15 of book 1 for today. And I would say that the short title of each section is very meaningful, I think. Okay, let's not forget that the first section is called The Teachers of the Purpose of Existence. And 2 is on the intellectual conscience, and 3 is noble and common. 4 is what preserves the species. 5 is unconditional duties. Don't worry, I will stop soon.
We're going to do all of those. We're just starting
Yes.
with. So we'll
Yes,
get to-
but my comment is on the meaning of those section. I will stop at 7. Don't worry. And 6 is loss of dignity, and 7 is something for the industrious. Okay, so if we go through the title of these sections, it's announcing the core essential of what I would call the Nietzschean themes, or the Nietzschean philosophy. Okay, because let's not forget that he's famous for his notion of untermenschen, the underman.
No, we're not there. We're not there.
Okay. Anyway, I just want to say that there is a link to the notion of underman, and he announced in all those sections the fundamentals of these. I stop here.
Okay, that's we're going to get to the Übermensch in Zarathustra. We're not there yet. So we're just in the gay science. We're just going to talk about the gay science. And then we'll get to all of that other stuff later. Okay, so McQuon, did you have any thoughts about what this first section is about?
Well, that first section is about being and becoming, if you want a short answer.
Well, it would be interesting to know how you arrived at that, but that's okay. I think it's much simpler than that, to be honest with you. My own interpretation, I don't think it needs any interpretation. I think he's saying fundamentally that life and existence has no purpose at all. And he even refers to it as instinct, drive, and folly. And that's why it's the gay science. It's because you laugh at the absurdity of the teachers of the purpose of life. But you need the teachers in order to preserve life. And so he says that toward the end, mankind effectively now has one additional need, the need for ever new appearances of such teachers and teachings of a, in air quotes, purpose. Man has to believe, to know from time to time why he exists, even though I think Nietzsche is asserting there are no reasons. Existence just is.
Well,
the race
that's
to survive needs these people that create a pretend value in life. Quan.
Well, I am absolutely delighted by what everything you just said in the last 2 minutes, because when I say being and becoming, it's about that. Okay, becoming is about those strange, paradoxical events and situations which happens to us anyway, that we want it or not. And being precisely is that attempt to put some order with different teachers or different doctrines or different things that you invent for yourself.
Well, okay then, Jason.
Oh yeah, I think I figure out, because I thank you for saying you believe, you said Nietzsche said there's no purpose in life, because the quote I just read and you also read, he put a dash line, without faith in the reason in life. Okay, so I think that's that's what it meant. Okay, so thank you for that, because sometimes it's difficult to read Nietzsche, because he says something, he may say something he doesn't want you to do. But so I'll put a check mark on that. That means he approved this. So
Okay, S, who are you?
Well, because you're recording this for strangers I'll never meet, I'm staying off camera and I'm keeping my name unknown. So at this point, I'm brand new to your group. So can I comment on my thoughts on this, or are you still asking a question? What is it about?
We're discussing section 1 only right now.
Okay. I find this a very frightening section. The idea that the vantage point is what's best for the entire species rather than other options, such as what's justice, what's mercy, I find very frightening. I think the idea, in the year he wrote this, I don't know what evil meant, but he's very loose with the word evil. It means newness to him, both here and in section 4. But I'm sorry, looking back, evil is something different for many of us. And the idea that he's justifying evil because it's going to be best for the entire species is a dangerous thing. There's more to this in his other writings, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, there certainly is more. What I think he's trying to suggest is that retrospectively, when you look at the more horrifying events that have happened periodically, led to a resurgence of reasons to live, and that in the bigger picture, they all promoted the preservation of the species in one way or another, even if they seem in future points evil. We'll get into good and evil a little bit further down the road. Audrey.
Well, I'm understanding this about, I believe I understand the being and becoming. That makes sense to me. And I think that what he's showing here all through this is that we don't, I believe what Jason was saying about existence has now become the preservation of the species, but it's all a reaction to the tragic and the events that just keep happening. There's no reason for them, and that there's different views of how you can work with that and what actions to take. And it's not necessarily the preservation of the species. I think that you come to that because you want some kind of certainty. And I think that's what he says here.
Well, I think he's
Not
saying
only
there,
laughter and gay wisdom, but also the tragic, with all its sublime unreason, belongs to the means and necessities of the preservation of the species. I'm wondering if he's saying that that's the most important thing, or that we are doing that in reaction to these things that just happen, happenstance, basically, existence, the way we
yeah, but
experience
the
it.
things he says in another part of this thing, the things that would not lead to the preservation of the species have probably disappeared from human potential and possibilities. And so the only
Yeah.
thing left is stuff for preservation of the species. I think I don't think he's asserting, I think he's observing.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
putting his observation out. And I think we'll discover that's what a lot of this is.
Okay.
He's pointing, he's making an observation of this. Quan.
Thank you.
I would like to read the last 10 lines of the section. Is it possible?
Sure.
Okay. Man has gradually become a fantastic animal that must fulfill one condition of existence more than any other animal. Man must from time to time believe he knows why he exists. His race cannot thrive without a periodic trust in life, without faith in the reason in life. And ever again, the human race will from time to time decree there's something one is absolutely forbidden henceforth to laugh at, and that the most cautious friend of man will add not only laughter and gay wisdom, but also the tragic with all its sublime unreason belongs to the means and necessities of the preservations of the species. And therefore, oh, do you understand me, my brothers? Do you understand this new law of ebb and flood? We too have our time. Okay, I think that it's there precisely that I want to come back again to my pretensions. It's about being and becoming, because precisely man must from time to time believe he knows why he exists. Okay, and the why question is very central to being.
Yeah, but okay. I just think you're painting with too broad a brush here, and you're using being and becoming in ways that will not be useful down the road, because he's going to use those words too. And being is going to mean existence, and becoming is going to be the flow of events. And that's not what this is about. This is about the teachers of the purpose of life, and that they have value in preserving the species, which is the instinct at the bottom. Right. So that's the only reason I'm quibbling with your using being and becoming. It's just that's not what this is explicitly about. Right. Brad.
Oh, becoming as the event, as the currents or events of life, I agree absolutely. And being as existence, I agree.
Okay, Brad.
There's a little, I'm a little confused by this section in that he seems to suggest implicitly, as you said earlier, that that there is no purpose. His discussion is about how we are educated about purpose of life, and he seems to suggest that there is no purpose. But on the other hand, he also implicitly seems to suggest that the purpose is the preservation of the species. And if I were reading this at the time, I would wonder whether he is intentionally misrepresenting Darwinian theory of evolution, which it's a common misunderstanding that the goal is preservation of species. First of all, there's no goal to it; it's a mechanism. And secondly, to the extent that it has a focus. It's not preservation of the species, but the topic of Darwinian evolution is the the genesis of new species from existing species. And what the way natural selection operates is that it promotes the fitness of progeny, not necessarily the species. It so happens that it operates sometimes, usually for a while, to increase the number of members of the species. But Darwinian evolution is not teleological, it's mechanistic, but you can imply or impute a sort of a goal as a functional effect, which is the increase in the progeny. Now, since I'm forbidden from talking about post-Nietzsche, I won't go into the more clarifying details about genes, genetic structure, and the like, which modifies that. But even in Darwin's time, that's the notion, and it's a very common misperception down to today that the point of evolution is the preservation of the species. I just wonder if Nietzsche has read, number one, and misread, number two, Darwin's work in that respect.
My understanding is that he's a Darwinian, so he is familiar with Darwin. There's no question about that. I'm a little unsure I'm not quite sure what your confusion is over. He's not making a statement about Darwinian principles. He's making a statement about the instinct of the species to preserve, to make more, to stick around, not to just, disappear.
Well, that's
what he's asserting here is that man needs to have, because man is man, and man is the only animal that needs to have a belief in a reason to continue to stay alive. And I think that's all he's asserting here. Fundamentally,
he refers repeatedly, and I'll come back to it in section 4, about the preservation of the species.
Yeah.
As if that's the goal of man. And that's a very loaded term at that time, because it was debated with respect to Darwinian evolution. That's where the phrase comes from. Even though it's a misstatement of Darwinian evolution, there was a whole lot of debate about evolution and whether it redounded to the benefit of the species or not. And you would think that Nietzsche, of all people, would say, no, mankind doesn't have an instinct to preserve his species. Man has an instinct to preserve himself and his progeny. Forget the species. Who cares about the species? You'd think that would be the position taken by Nietzsche, but he seems to, at least implicitly, adopt this notion that there is a teleological purpose
No.
the entire species, because he says so repeatedly.
Nietzsche is not doing that. Nietzsche admits that it's all a bunch of BS, that there is no reason. The point that he's trying to make is man needs a reason. He's not saying there is one. He's saying that people need reasons to live, to find what life of value. If they don't have a reason, then they might as well kill themselves, because it's all, a lot of silly nonsense. I think that's what he's saying here.
I don't see where he says that, but that's part of the ambiguity, I guess, that confuses me, whether he's asserting that. He seems to be asserting it implicitly, but he doesn't say explicitly that that there is teleological purpose for the preservation of species, or to deny that there is such a purpose. It's all implicit. That's why several people, commentators so far, have said that it's the purpose is preservation of species, but it's at the very least it's poorly worded because it has multiple people draw multiple contradictory conclusions, and none of them are really very clearly laid out in this first section or the fourth section. Maybe we can come back to it in the fourth section. Which
Well,
picks it up.
yeah, that's what we'll be doing. We'll be developing these themes as they pop. And sorry about my voice again, but it is what it is.
Can I jump in, or you don't allow that?
If you put your hand up, sure. Put your hand up, and then you
Oh,
can jump
okay.
in.
It's not
Jason.
jumping. Okay. thanks.
Jason.
Yeah, please put the hands up. I'm the co-host. I still put my hand. So, yeah. Anyway, just kind of respond to what Fred talking about. I think he's quite obvious against the reason, if not implicit. Okay, if you, I don't know what the page, if you say page 29 or just one page before the ending. In the middle, he said, right, it is then surrounded by resplendent retinue of reason. Okay, he used retinue. I think it's look down on that and try with all its might to make us forget the fundamental. It is drive, right? What's that? Instinct, stupidity, lack of reason. I think, well, of course, it's difficult to read, but I think he's talking about we forget about that. And then later he put the exclamation mark. Life ought to be loved because man ought to advance himself and his neighbor. Because, okay, he put the italic or highlight on ought and because. Remember, ought is practical reason, take Kant's sense, right? And because is theoretical reason. So here he's talking about, and the next sentence he say, what name all these oughts and because has been given and may yet be given in the future. So of course you can read a different way, but I think that's quite obvious. As Lindsay said, he's talking about unreasoning or against the reason. That's why he highlights ought and because that's two kinds of reason according to Kant.
What section is that, Jason? Because I have a different.
It's under section 1, and the last paragraph is very, very long, right? If you go well, there's no paragraph, okay, but basically it's about last 1/3 of middle, on the middle to the end.
Thanks.
If you're looking for upper case, ought and because, okay.
That section you read from is where he states, I think, what his position is on the meaning of life. And it's right before life shall be loved because. And it is surrounded life existence by a resplendent retinue of reasons and tries with all the force at its command to make us forget that at bottom it is instinct, drive, folly, lack of reason. That's his position on existence. Quan.
Okay, I just want to read again a line. Man must from time to time believe he knows why he exists. That's all.
Yeah, he's speaking about human beings in general. That's a requirement for us as animals in order to preserve our species. We have to believe there's a reason for us to be here. He doesn't. He believes there's wisdom beyond that, but he's observing that this is what people need, is a reason to keep going. James.
Yeah, I think that line at the bottom there, where he says that not only laughter and gay wisdom, but also the tragic with all its sublime unreason belongs to the mean and necessities of the preservation of species. That I think he's disagreeing with Darwin, because Darwin's theory only is concerned with, that man as a creature concerned with preservation of the species, and not with, and Nietzsche is saying more than that, that there's more reason, there's more than that belief in the preservation that is at play in our existence, and that we are ones who do have this kind of gay wisdom, which includes the tragic, encountering the sufferings of life, try to account for the sufferings in life in order to, give us a reason for our existence. And that kind of gay wisdom and the understanding of the tragic is important, just like in his, and that goes deeper than just other, other kinds of purpose that other philosophers have given to account for our existence.
Do you think, after reading this passage, that Nietzsche is asserting that there is a reason for life, for our lives and our existence?
Right. But also that the fact that man is the one that gives ourselves a reason for our existence. And not just that we are, not just assert that we are beings, okay, and that's as if we somehow arrive at some ultimate purpose, which is being, because he's known for his vision of life is that it is a constant becoming, and we strive for being, but we never arrive at it. We never settle on something being.
We're not that far along yet. I hate to assert that again. He is saying, and I really think we should be clear on this, and I think I've got this right because I read you that part about what he really thinks, is we produce reasons just to keep us going. It's not that there are reasons.
Right.
At bottom, there aren't any reasons
Right.
at all.
Or just like the artist creates art, right? That activity of creating art is a reason for one's existence. Not that you could just create one piece of art and say, that's it. That's my reason for existence. No, it's the process of creating itself that is the reason for that he thinks is our existence.
Well, actually, I don't think that's in this section. Okay, Audrey.
I think you're right, Lindsay. I think that he's just in the very first sentence, it said, of this, it says, whether I regard human beings with a good or evil eye, I always find them engaged. I always find them. So he's observing, engaged in a single task, each and every one of them, to do what benefits the preservation of the human race, not from feeling of love for the race, but simply because within them, nothing is older, stronger, more inexorable and invincible than this instinct, because this instinct constitutes the essence of our species and herds. And then he goes on the rest of the way. See, this is what he observes. This is what people seem to do because they need, and then he goes on to explain that they need reasons. And those reasons are what keeps this happening, but there are no reasons. And he doesn't quite get to there are no reasons yet, but he will. And so I agree that this is just showing what he's observing, and then he's going to pull it apart in all his ramblings from now on, and for every book. So thank you. I can't hear you, Lindsay.
You are muted, Lindsay.
Sorry about that. I would be hard put to call them ramblings. I think these are thoughts. These are thought experiments. These are things that are going to be coming out of, and this is the very first one. And I think he will develop the theme later on, because life to him is as important as it is to everybody else, and that we've already picked up from the earlier books that we read. But again, I will just quote that thing in that, let's see what.
You are muted again, Lindsay.
It's the fifth paragraph, sorry. And it's the second sentence. Well, I'll read the whole thing here. From time to time, this instinct, preservation of species, which is at work equally in the highest and the basest men, the instinct for the preservation of the species, erupts as a reason and as passion of the spirit. Then it is surrounded by a resplendent retinue of reasons and tries with all the forces at its command to make us forget that at bottom it is instinct, drive, folly, lack of reasons.
You muted again.
Yeah. I said, that's what it means to me. Does that not mean the same thing to you guys, Aquan?
Well, once again, I want to read a very short sentence. His race cannot thrive without a periodic trust in life, without faith in the reason of life. Okay, so in three lines, he used the word believe, he used the word trust, he used the word faith. Okay, it's in the same semantic field: believe, faith, and trust. So once again, it's a question of primal drive from the species.
Yeah, instinct. He calls it instinct. And he recognizes it as that. So I don't think he's arguing with you there, Fred.
I guess it's just, I appreciate the readings and the insights of all the people, Audrey and Lindsay and the like, which, as far as I can tell, just reinforces exactly what I said, that he's very definitely Nietzsche rails against specious reasons given, oughts and shoulds, for our purpose in life. And he falls back on that we are driven fundamentally by instincts. But for him, that includes an instinct for the self-preservation of species, which is simply wrong. It's wrong in Darwinian terms, and I won't get into subsequent science, but even in Darwinian terms, that's just simply not true. So what I see here is that, first, that he does assert that there's an instinct for self-preservation of species. Second, that we are driven by that instinct. Third, that we make up specious reasons, oughts and shoulds, to justify our behavior. But fourth, that fundamentally is that instinct for preservation of species, which is not Darwinian, does not exist, that he thinks generates. It would be helpful if he explained further why he thinks that that's an instinct of human behavior.
So, so your point is that Darwin doesn't use that word instinct.
No,
Because
I'm not saying that at all. Of course, we
Sounded
have instincts. The point is that Darwin does not assert, nor is it the case, that there is an instinct for the preservation of the species as a whole. We all know
Okay.
that individual species fight each other. Families of lots of different species fight other families and it's not, they're not making a calculation, and it's not instinctual that they want to preserve far-flung members of the same species. So I would gather from this that this is in fact a misreading of Darwin. He's asserting an instinct which he doesn't justify or explain, and which is not borne out by science.
Okay. All right, Jason.
Yeah, I think probably everyone will insist he or she is right. I think that's, but that's why I just want to change a little bit the subject, which I think nothing with existence or instinct, but I think it's important to me. It's on the first paragraph toward probably on the first 10 lines. Even the most harmful person may be actually be the most useful when it's come to the preservation of the species. I think at least, I don't care he talk about his preservation of species, he agree or disagree, but basically I think this sentence make a lot of sense, at least to me. So something wrong opinion, harmful people, turn out maybe helpful, useful, good people. So
Yeah, yes, I'm there. I'm there with you. Ned.
Yeah, I don't know where to begin. First of all, I think he's saying when he, and again, I might have a different edition from you guys. I'm using this book here, but he talks about we're still in the age of tragedy, the age of moralities and religion. We haven't come to the age of comedy, where there is a joyousness of science, the joyous science. And sometimes it's not very clear, but it is kind of he's pointing out, it seems to me, as Lindsay says, that we make up reasons for living, have purpose in life, and so forth, and that allows us to live. And we think that is also for the survival of the species and so forth. But I think he kind of poo-poos that is the inclination that I read, because at the very beginning he does say what certain instincts that allow us to preserve ourselves, and he points out that things like hatred, malicious glee, rapacity, ambition, whatever is called evil, belong to the remarkable economy of preservation, blah, 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 has been proven to preserve our kind. But we are living in an age where we have kind of covered these things up, because we live in an age of religion, tragedy, and so forth. But we need to go to an age of comedy where there is joyous laughter, and but that is unclear yet as to what that actually means. There are some hints of it, but it's hard to read what that is. There's one place when he says, in my edition, then when mankind has subscribed to the proposition, the species is everything, the individual is always nothing, and for every man, the way is open at all times to this final liberation and irresponsibility. Perhaps then laughter will be allied with wisdom. Perhaps then there will be nothing but joyous science. But for the time being, we're still living in this age of moralities and religions, and we have this strange notion of what survival is, what preservation means. Anyway, that's kind of how I read it, how I guess it, because it's so hard to decipher where he's ending with this. It will become clearer later on, I suppose.
Yeah, I think some of those themes that you're mentioning are going to be developed further. Yeah, man, I just can't shake this feeling that I have here that I think it's way simpler. He's saying basically we need to have people make up reasons for most people to want to keep on living. At bottom, it's all a bunch of hooey. That's the truth of the matter. And eventually someday we can arrive at the truth. And everybody's going to be happy because then we won't have to listen to any more of these reasons. He's not going there exactly. But fundamentally, I think it's all a bunch of BS, and we have to have reasons for the species to survive. I think that's all that's being said here, James.
Yeah, are you saying that this need for survival is consistent with Darwinian theory that it's according to Darwin, the reason why we exist is to preserve the species, is to survive. And for me, I think, based on the last few lines, he's saying that man is, has become a fantastic animal that must fulfill one condition of existence. That, in other words, man is distinct from the animals. The animals may have this instinct for survival, but man has something more than that, or maybe very distinct from that, the animal instinct. Man has to have a reason why, he exists. And that reason, that striving, asking questions why he exists is what distinguishes, man from the animals.
Right on. Audrey.
I forgot what I was going to say. I stopped. I give up. But I don't know why you just said right on. I
think James summed that up. That is a point that he's making too. Human beings are different from animals.
Oh, yes, yes.
Mostly because we need a reason. Animals, cats, dogs, flies, fleas, trees, well, not trees, but they don't
Right.
need a reason to keep on making more of themselves unless they run out of, their ecological niche or something. We need a reason to keep going. We need to conquer that tribe over there because we need more land. We make these things up and then we believe them.
Right. So why does he use instinct, do you think, in this? Is an instinct the same thing as in, is it the same word in German? Does it mean the same in?
Yes. Yes, it does. It does.
Okay.
A conquer makes a point of that. I don't know why that is so troubling. I'm not having any trouble figuring out what an instinct he's talking about. Okay, Freud called it the sex drive.
Right. Okay.
That's the sex drive. Let's call it the sex drive. How about that? Freud, by the way.
I'm not a Freudian, so
Fred,
I'm not having a problem. I was just trying to understand the reading of, people. I can see where people are reading this, where he's making statements rather than leading us someplace. And to me, it's very clear that he's saying that there are no reasons. That's all I'm saying. But maybe the word instinct, I don't know, confuses people. That's all.
Yeah, I guess it's and I don't think that it's helpful to bring Darwin into this. He accepted the notion of the origin of species, adaptation, natural selection, all that stuff. He was not contradicting any of that. And it's just he's using the word instinct in the same way we use the word instinct. So, it's instinctive to want to get laid. And the reason
Okay.
to do that is because it makes more of us.
But is he saying something more though? Is Nietzsche asserting something more than that the shared instincts that we have with animals?
No, he's saying that other people generally, mankind as a species needs some excuse to keep on
Right.
going in the way that a cat does it.
Right.
Cats just, they
That's
don't
it.
care. They don't even know tomorrow's going to happen.
Right.
But we need some reason to get up in the morning. That's what he's saying. Not that there are reasons to do that, but
Right.
if we don't, it appears to him, and I think this is an observation, that man, and I think this is absolutely 100% true, needs a reason to keep going.
Mhm.
Democracy, Imperial Russia, these you just, in the grand scheme of things, these are just made up words that keep us
Yes.
plunging into the next day.
Yep.
I think that's all that's being said, Jason.
Yeah, I think that's the essence. We need a reason, and not because they have some reason there. But I will kind of want to point out it's not we, actually. We means each individual, I think. I just respond to what Nick just read the sentence. I believe I read it correctly. The quote here is, that's on the bottom of the page. Okay, first page. The species is everything, and individual is always nothing. Okay, he put quote on that. I believe he is against this one. So actually, Nietzsche believes individual is important, and the species is not that important. So when Lindsay say we need a reason, we doesn't mean we as a whole human. It means Lindsay, Jason, Nick, Kwang, Audrey, everybody has his or her own reason. I believe that's what Nietzsche said.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
look for these groups.
Kwang.
Okay, I would like to add a little pedantic consideration concerning precisely the word instinct. Because in physiology and in medicine, you will see it's not so useless, maybe. In physiology and medicine, we distinguish 4 levels, okay? The reflex, the instinct, the automatic thinking, and the awareness. So when the reflex, for example, you have a speck of dust in your eyes and your eyes won't blink, okay? That's a reflex. An instinct is a series of automatic behavior, like, for example, in sexual drive, okay? So instinct and sexual drive is a perfect match. I agree with that. However, in the human species, the sex drive is not necessarily mechanical, biomechanical, but require a certain sex fantasies. Okay, that's why the sex drive in the human being is not only at the instinctual level, but also in the automatic thinking level. That's why, and it is related to our text. We need to invent some reason to keep on and to go to the other day. Okay, so when we make sex with our partner, sometimes we think to someone else. So that is part of this, what is special in the sex drive of the human being, which is not only at the second level, which is instinctual, but also at the third level, the making of images and of reason, and it's linked to what Nietzsche say for life in general and not only the sex activity. I stop here.
Okie dokie. Thank you for that. It's just the word instinct for me, Nick.
So I would like to invite everyone to read the last 2 paragraphs and try to understand what he's saying. So before the paragraph, he has talked about we're in the age of tragedy, of morals, of religion, and so forth. And so now he starts talking about, I think, what he wants to say. in my edition, again, it might sound different. There is no denying that in the long run, every one of these great teachers of purpose, these teachers that are telling us that there should be purpose in life, so far have been overcome by laughter and reason and nature. In the end, the brief tragedy always turned and returned to the eternal comedy of life. This is where he wants us to get to, I believe, the comedy of life. In the waves of countless laughter, to speak with Aeschylus must eventually shipwreck even the greatest of these tragedians. Notwithstanding all this laughter serving as a corrective, human nature has been wholly transformed by endless procession of those teachers of the purpose of life. The human nature now has further need, precisely the need for an endless procession of such teachers and doctrines of purposes. Man has gradually become a fanciful animal who has one more condition of existence to fulfill than other animals. From time to time, man must think he knows why he exists. The human race cannot flourish without periodically renewed trust in life, without believing in reason in life. And again, humankind will decree from time to time there is something at which you are henceforth absolutely forbidden to laugh because you have this purpose. And the canniest of philanthropists will add not only laughter and joyous wisdom, but also the tragic with all sublime unreasonableness are among the necessities and means of preservation. Okay, and then at the end, in the next paragraph, he said, and consequently, do you understand me, my brothers? Do you understand that this new law of ebb and flow, our time will come? So this will change eventually, and a realization that this age of tragedy will give birth to this joyous science where we don't. I think we can surpass the purposes. I think it's where he's heading. Is what I suspect. So anyway, that is my reading of it. There might be other readings, so this is why I would welcome if there are other interpretations of that.
Give me your interpretation one more time. I know you read all that. Just tell me again what your interpretation.
Well, in essence, he's saying that we're in the age of tragedy where we are kind of of morals and so forth, where we are influenced by these teachers of purpose. In other words, they're saying that to live, we start believing we have to have a purpose in order for life to be worth living. I believe he's saying that this is a phase we're in, but he wants to move us into what he's calling in the age of joyous science.
Yeah.
And that age of joy and science will change this belief and show it to be, oh, not quite. You don't really need that. We've been misled by these teachers. So this is, I believe, where he's heading. But that's a leap on my part.
No, that's good. I would agree. I'm going to agree with you. I think you've hit a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
That suggestion is in there. And the other thing this project does, this very opening shot here, is really denying religion any real validity beyond a means to inspire preservation of the species. That religion at base is just more folly and instinct and lack of reason. And that will become really important. James.
Yeah, would you say that's consistent with the birth of tragedy, where the tragic hero is this kind of embodiment of a purpose, a hero that has a purpose in life at the beginning, but the tragedy ends when the hero, meets his downfall, and the triumph of the Dionysian, the chorus, is triumphant, and the hero collapses. His purpose is gone. His purpose in life is gone, right? Because that was the definition of his this tragic hero is that he is an embodiment of some kind of a higher purpose. And the purpose of tragedy is to reveal the truth that, there is no purpose, and that what is really triumphant, what is really real is the Dionysian spirit of life itself.
Yeah, and all of its complexity and ugliness and lack of reason.
Right.
That's where the birth of tragedy headed, especially with Aeschylus and Prometheus Bound. So we've been in that space before. And the assertion that he made in that book, which is it's only as an aesthetic phenomenon that life and existence can be eternally justified. In other words, art. That is going to, I think, we're not there, but it's hard not to get a little bit ahead of myself here. Anyway, that's worth remembering, that sort of thing too. But you're right. The look at the Dionysian is a look into the world of the wisdom of Silenus, which is it's better not to have been born. And once you've been born, you should die quickly. And that's the horror story of existence in that book. Okay. I'm not going to move on to the next one because I want to have time to discuss that as well. I guess the same reading assignment will apply. Maybe we can read to 16. I'm not really sure. But this was a really interesting discussion. I'm not sure where we're at, but we all have our own sense, I think, of how we're dealing with this. It's not like you have to agree with me, even if I'm right. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to pull a plug today, and I hope I see you guys next week. We have a mixed bag, but it would be really nice to have a whole group, and I really appreciate everybody's comments and observations. And
What do you
I
mean
really-
a mixed bag?
what, Audrey?
What do you mean by a mixed bag?
I don't know. Is that what I said?
Yes, you said we're a mixed bag. Like, what are?
Of ideas, I guess.
I've been in other meetups with you guys.
Yeah. No, and I just mean it's been hit and miss for the last
Yeah.
16 or 18 of these things in the previous books.
Yeah, different participants.
Sometimes they come back and sometimes they don't, and sometimes
Right. I understand.
Yeah, in the previous section, we probably don't have a lot of people show up. And this one, we have a lot of people show up. So,
yeah, this was great.
yeah, so it's common, but, and everybody is welcome, so we follow the rule. And we remember everybody insists he or she is right. But finally, we all agree only Lindsay is right. So that's the conclusion.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for helping us to clarification.
I'll see you all.
And I think you should expect more people to join, because these are more popular books of Nietzsche coming up.
Yeah.
The ones we had
fundamental.
were not many have read them.
Doesn't this meeting go to 4:30? That's
but
what
I want to get started on and have half of a conversation about the next aphorism, and then try to pick up the pieces next week. So we're just stopping early because we engaged with this first one for almost the whole meetup, but not quite.
You call these aphorisms? They're pretty long.
Well, but it gets shorter and shorter, so don't worry, Right, the aphorism gets shorter. The first one is very long, and then get shorter and shorter. And to the end, like 300, it's very short. So
Yeah.
we're not going to run like for another 20 years, so that's fine.
The meetup originally was just an hour long, and then it would drift after hours. And so I blocked out an hour and a half just because it might go that long. And sometimes they do. And if, you know, if we can fit another one in gracefully, then yeah, sure, we'll go to 4:30. But I don't want to break these up into this week half the discussion and next week the other half of the discussion.
Right,
So,
right. That's wise.
So we start from chapter 2 next week.
Section 2, aphorism 2.
Yeah, aphorism 2. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Yeah. So we forget about the existence. So we have the new thing to talk about.
Go there, essence.
Yeah.